To start off, let's look right here. Make sure you write this down in your notes. This is a review of SOHCAHTOA. Recall that sine theta is O over H, cosine theta is A over H, tan theta is O over A. And what we're going to be doing is working with the 45-degree special triangle. So to start, notice how it says find the exact values of the 6 trig functions of 45 degrees. Let's just write down our 6 functions: sine, cosine, tan, and notice how I'm putting 45 on each one because that's what it wants us to do. Cosecant, secant, and finally cotan. And what we're going to do is look at this triangle right here, and we're going to fill that in: 45, 45, and 90 there. Now the ratios, hopefully you recall from geometry, are x, x, and x root 2. To make it easier, we're going to let x equal 1, just because for the sake of our ratios, working with these numbers will be easier. So we're going to put 1, 1, and root 2, and we're going to use that to figure all of these things out. So sine 45, we do O over H, and to help you, remember, imagine there's a stick figure at 45, so I could have put it on this leg or this leg, doesn't really matter. But since I put them there, I'll put O here, H there, A here, and now answer the question. Sine 45, that's 1 over root 2, which is root 2 over 2. Cosine 45, that's also root 2 over 2. Tan 45 is 1. And then for the next ones, we're going to flip everything. So that's just root 2, and 1. So here are the 6 answers. Not too bad. Now we're going to use that table to answer these questions. Sine 45 times tan 45. We'll look at your triangle or the table. Sine 45 is root 2 over 2. Tan 45 is 1. Multiply them together, you get root 2 over 2. Next one, secant pi over 4. Recall that's just 45 degrees, so it might be easy to just think of it that way for now. So secant of 45, that's just root 2. Cotan of 45 is 1. The answer is root 2. Next one. It says do the exact same thing except for 30 and 60 degrees. So first, let's fill in the triangle. This is our 60, here's our 30, and hopefully you recall these ratios from geometry. The short leg is x, hypotenuse is 2x, and this is x root 3. Again, to make it simple, we're going to make x 1. And that would just make this triangle easier to work with. And now let's fill everything in. Let's start with 30. So I'm going to write sine 30, cosine 30, tan 30, cosecant 30, secant 30, and cotan 30. Let's figure that out. So sine 30, draw your stick man at the 30. This is O, H, and A. Let's figure everything out. So sine 30, that's 1 over 2. Cosine 30 is root 3 over 2. Tan 30 is root 3 over 3. To get the other ones, take the reciprocal. So 2 root 3 over 3, and root 3. And we're done. Now let's do the 60. So sine 60, cosine 60, tan 60, and now do the next 3. Cosecant 60, secant 60, and cotan 60. So this is important. Notice how we're using 60 degrees now, which means our stick figure has to move. We're going to put the stick figure at the 60 right there, which means h is still 2, but root 3 is now your opposite, 1 is your adjacent. So that's going to change our answers. So sine 60 is root 3 over 2, cosine 60 is 1 over 2, tan 60 is root 3. Now flip them. 2 root 3 over 3, 2 root 3 over 3. And there's our answers. Now, hopefully you notice something interesting here. These numbers should all look familiar. Let's look at this sine 30. That's a half. Isn't it interesting that that matches up with cosine 60? That's also a half. And then look at cosine 30. That's the same as sine 60. So remember, this is an example of cofunctions because 30 and 60 add to 90. You're going to see these numbers matching everywhere. And again, that's why you're going to see tangent 30, that's equal to cotan 60, because these are all the cofunctions. So a pretty cool example of that. And our last example for this particular unit here, we're going to use our chart to figure everything out. So for your homework, feel free to use a triangle or the chart. Sine 45, that would be root 2 over 2. Cosine 30 is root 3 over 2. Multiply, you get root 6 over 4. Tan pi over 4 is 1 minus sine pi over 3, that's root 3 over 2. Now we're going to want to put that together as one fraction, so that would be 2 minus root 3 all over 2. And the last one, that squared is written that way because you don't want it to be confusing with the pi over 6. So some people, when you're first learning trig, will rewrite it like this, because mathematically this is what's happening. It's pronounced tan squared, but really this means tan of pi over 6 quantity squared. So knowing that, let's figure it out. So pi over 6, remember that's just 30 degrees, that's 45 degrees. So tan pi over 6, that's just tan 30. So that would be root 3 over 3 squared. Sine pi over 4 is root 2 over 2 squared. That's simply 1/3 plus 1/2, 5 over 6.